Hello, and welcome to my channel. My name is Jonathan Cohn, and today I have my book review of the book, Saturn, by Ben Bova. This is one of the many books in his Grand Tour universe, which is a kind of a hard sci-fi series. Now, I have been reading Ben Bova for a little bit over a year now. He has quickly become, in just a short time, one of my favorite science fiction authors. He has the book Mars, which starts his Mars series, which is just a terrific book. One of my favorite science fiction novels of all time. And then he wrote Return to Mars, which was fine. He wrote Mars Life, which is excellent. And then he also wrote the excellent Jupiter and Leviathans of Jupiter, which was a fantastic book. And then he wrote the controversial, but still very good in my opinion, Far Side, very entertaining book. And so now I'm also talking about his book Saturn, which is the first of a duology as part of the universe. For those of you who don't know, Ben Bova kind of does his grand tour where there is like a timeline, but you can kind of start any sub-series anywhere. It's going to work. There's going to be connections to everything else, but you don't need to have read everything else. I always recommend start with Mars and then move on to the other stuff. But I'm going on to Saturn now. And there's a duology. The second book is called Titan, which I'll read next month. But the basic premise of this is that 10,000 people are getting on this ship called the Goddard, which is basically like a habitat ship. It's a huge, enormous spaceship that is being sent from Earth all the way down to Saturn to try to go there for about a 5-year period of time, which is meant to explore Saturn and put people around there and to see what's up scientifically, and also it's kind of to see what's going to happen is like if we put people on in that area, they're not going to go on Saturn itself, but if you put like a habitat around there, what's going to happen? It's supposed to be kind of a self-fulfilling habitat. They have a lot of their own food and resources that are grown within the actual spaceship itself, so they don't have to constantly trade for food and stuff. And so that's why it's going out on a 5-year mission, which makes it sound very Star Trek, which is interesting because it has some other Star Trekian themes in the book, particularly the themes about affecting life on another planet. Titan, one of the moons of Saturn, is believed in this book series to have microscopic life, and they fear that if humans go and affect Titan, they might kill that life or affect it for the worst. And so there's this debate about whether or not they should just not even mess with Titan, or if they should see if they can get resources from it, because it seems to be a resource-rich moon. And so there's all these great discussions about that as well. But at its heart, this book is a political thriller. At its heart, this book is about the whole government behind the habitat. There is an administrator who's in charge, and he has a bunch of people that work for him. But the intent with this ship is that when they get to Saturn, about a year into their 5-year mission, they will form a new government, which will run the habitat once they're there. And so the book becomes a jockeying for power in that new government. At the same time, there's also a murder that happens, and so our main character, Holly, is trying to uncover all of this stuff. And so Holly is caught in the middle because she works for some of the government workers who are running to be the leaders and administrators. She's also seen this, dead body that she believes is a murder and no one else believes is a murder. And then there's also her other themes that she's dealing with. And Holly is a very standard Ben Bova character, but he did add a little twist this time with her background a little bit. But how she acts in this book is very, very Ben Bova-ish, the way he writes women. And the way he writes men is very typical as well. The book does serve some similar themes from the exploration that the other books have, but it's much more focused on the political thriller. You're not like going to Saturn in this book and seeing exploration of the planet or the rings as much. There's a little bit in there. It's a tiny bit. Whereas it was a big part of these other books, it is a small part of this. The focal point is the political thriller mystery element of this book. You have one of the main characters in this book is Malcolm Eberly, who is one of the administrators who is jockeying to be the lead administrator, and he is this excellently written Machiavellian character. He has these underhanded plays. He has these plans that lie years in the making. And he is such a tactical and brilliant mind. He's also dripping with evil. But you also love him. You really enjoy his character. You love reading about him. And I was so hooked on him. And maybe it's because I like Machiavellian characters, but he felt like something out of Game of Thrones almost, with the way he's thinking and manipulating and planning everything. And then you also have the character of Holly, who idolizes him. She absolutely has fallen in love. She's infatuated with him. She views him as this brilliant individual, and she'd do whatever it takes to be with him, and she would do whatever he asks of her. And so this book deals with how you'd handle idol worship. It also deals with how you handle power. It discusses power grabs, how you set up governments, what is a just way to set up government, can an unjust group still govern justly. These are great questions that it's not like it's a philosophical debate. It's you're thinking about these questions as the plot happens in the book. And so this book has just such rich ideas and themes. Now, the reason Far Side was controversial was because it has some themes dealing with the issues of promiscuity. And as such, the way Ben Bova writes them is, I think, bound to make everybody angry at him. People who are prudes like me are going to be angry at him. People who are who like promiscuity will be angry because the way he deals with the themes about it will be angry at him. But and in this book is the same. I think it's simpler in Far Side. It's handled a little bit simpler, and so it's more focused. Whereas here, there's like a I can't call it a love triangle because it's 3 women and 1 guy that's involved in this thing. Anyway, and I think it's just going to make people feel like Bova's male characters are pigs. But there's a reason he's doing that. There's a reason he is making a point about culture with that. I just think that people will lose sight of that in this book. This book does have some connections to the other books. There's references to the New Morality and other events. The biggest connection is actually to Far Side, because even though Far Side, the book came out way later, it takes place earlier on in the timeline, and one of the main characters in Far Side shows up in Saturn. And so I was like, oh, that's a cool connection. You will instantly, when you see this character pop up on the page, you'll be like, oh yeah, that's that character. So I really enjoyed reading about Saturn. There were a few elements that I didn't love. I think he could have glossed over some things in the middle with the sexual elements. But as a whole, I think this is a really excellent story. It makes it different. It doesn't feel like he's hitting the same notes. Because one thing I was afraid of was, Mars and Return to Mars feel like he was hitting the same things over and over again. And Leviathans of Jupiter and Far Side felt like he was dealing with the same story, just in 2 different ways. And so I was like, man, don't just recycle, do something new. This is him both doing something new and something old. This is him taking the space exploration, taking the types of characters, the archetypes, all that stuff, but the political thriller of this book is so different than the others. Mars deals with politics. Jupiter deals with politics. Far Side even, a little bit, deals with politics, but this is a political thriller. And the last 150 pages is paced so well that it just flies by, and I absolutely loved it. I was hooked. I was hooked for most of the book, but I was really hooked at the end. So I loved it. I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. Boy, is this month's book of the month going to be difficult to choose because there's so many great ones. But I loved reading Saturn. So if you've read Saturn, let me know your thoughts in the comments section down below. And until next time, I'm Jonathan, and thank you for watching.